Hey everyone! Today, we're going to demystify a really powerful framework that's all about helping organizations handle pretty much anything that gets thrown at them. We're talking about the CERT Resilience Management Model, or RMM. So let's just dive right in and see what makes this thing tick. To really get a handle on this pretty complex model, its creators turned to something surprisingly simple, a slinky. Yeah, I know, it sounds a little strange, but that coiled piece of wire you played with as a kid, it turns out it's the perfect metaphor for what it means to be a truly resilient organization in a world that's, well, full of surprises. So let's stick with that slinky for a minute, because it helps us understand the fundamental problem that resilience is trying to solve in the first place. This slide just frames the whole challenge perfectly. A healthy, resilient organization can bend, it can stretch when it gets hit by a disruption, a cyber attack, a supply chain failure, whatever it is, and then it springs right back into shape. But if you push it too far, if you stretch it beyond its limits, it just snaps. It becomes a useless piece of wire, permanently damaged and unable to function. And the stakes for becoming that tangled wire? They are incredibly high. Just look at this number. According to one study, a staggering 93% of companies that lost their data center for 10 days or more filed for bankruptcy within a single year. That's not just a risk, that's practically a death sentence for a business. Okay, so this is exactly where the CERT resilience management model comes into play. It's designed to keep organizations in that perfect slinky shape, always ready for the unexpected. So what is it really? Well, think of the RMM as a guide. It's a collection of best practices pulled from all over industry and government, all bundled together into one comprehensive model. The key here is that it's not just about surviving. It's about building the capability, the organizational muscle, to manage operational resilience no matter what happens. And here's the absolute heart of it. The model's main goal is to shift an entire organization's mindset. It's trying to push them away from having all these disconnected, siloed departments and move them toward a unified, strategic approach where everyone, and I mean everyone, is working together on resilience. And that brings us to what is maybe the single most important idea in the entire RMM, this concept of convergence. Think about how things usually work. You've got your security team, your business continuity folks, and your IT ops department. Traditionally, they all operate in their own little worlds. They each have their own budget, their own goals, and a lot of the time, they barely talk to each other. And you know what that creates? Gaps, redundancies, and just massive inefficiencies. The RMM proposes something pretty radical, actually. Bring them all together. Convergence means harmonizing these different functions. When they start working together, they can share information, they can stop duplicating work, and they can focus their combined strength on that one single vital goal, making the whole organization resilient. And this quote just nails the business case for it. This isn't just some nice philosophical idea. It's just smart business. When you have different teams trying to solve similar problems, working together is simply more efficient and way more effective. You end up getting better results with less effort. It just makes sense. Okay, so if we're going to build resilience, what are the actual building blocks? The RMM simplifies this beautifully by getting us to focus on just two things: services and assets. First up, services. Just think of a service as any critical thing an organization does. So for a bank, that could be retail banking. For a utility company, maybe it's gas distribution. These high-value services are what the organization actually does, and they are the ultimate thing we're trying to protect with all our resilience efforts. And this shows how it all connects in a really simple hierarchy. You've got those high-value services at the top. They are supported by a bunch of business processes, and those processes, in turn, are fueled by the organization's core assets. And the RMM defines just 4 types of these core assets. You've got people with all their skills and knowledge. Information, the data that makes everything run. Technology, so everything from servers to software. And finally, facilities, the actual buildings and data centers. If you want to make a service resilient, you absolutely have to protect and sustain these 4 things. But the RMM is way more than just a list of things you need to protect. It actually provides a clear path, a roadmap for improvement, to move an organization from a state of chaos to one of true capability.
This right here is the whole concept of process maturity. See, it's not enough to just do the right things. You have to embed those practices so deeply into the company culture that they become reliable and repeatable, almost like muscle memory. An institutionalized process is one that holds up during a crisis, not one that falls apart at the first sign of trouble.
So the whole journey starts here, at capability level 1. This is where you're just performing the process. The work gets done, sure, but it's probably chaotic, unpredictable, and relies on a few key people being heroes to save the day. At level 2, the process becomes managed. Now you're not just doing it, you're planning it. You're actively monitoring how it's going and controlling the outcomes. It's a much more deliberate, conscious effort to make that process reliable. And then at level 3, the process is defined. This is where it's standardized across the entire organization. Everybody follows a shared, well-understood process, and that leads to consistency, predictability, and a truly resilient operation. So this brings us all the way back to the main question. And it's not a question for the model, it's a question for you and for your organization. Because in the end, it all comes back to our Slinky. A resilient organization, one that's converged its efforts and matured its processes, can take a big hit and bounce right back, ready for whatever's next. An unprepared one, well, it risks being stretched into that useless, tangled wire for good. So the question isn't if a disruption is going to strike. It's really a matter of when. And when it does, will your organization be the slinky or the tangled wire? The answer to that question, well, that reveals everything.